I'm awestruck by, for example, the same things that Galileo was awestruck by. Uh, Galileo and his contemporaries were carrying out in the 17th century a major revision of the whole picture of science. That's the birth of modern science, questioning everything, reconstructing it, and so on. And one of the topics that they were interested in was that captured their attention was language. And they expressed, Galileo and others expressed their awe, AWE, and amazement at an astonishing property of ordinary language. Somehow, with a handful of symbols, a couple of dozen symbols, we can construct in our minds infinitely many thoughts, which is already kind of miraculous. How can this happen? And in addition, we can find a way to convey these thoughts to the minds of others who have no access to our minds. Galileo regarded the alphabet as the most stupendous of human inventions, the level of Michelangelo or Titian. His contemporaries had the same view. I think they were right. It's what I've sometimes called the Galilean challenge. How can this miracle be achieved? For Descartes, this was essentially one of the basic reasons why he established mind as an entity distinct from body, because of the way in which language is used creatively to express an infinity of thoughts which have never been heard before and can somehow enable others who have no access to our minds, enable them to nevertheless understand, grasp the workings of our minds that he thought required something outside the mechanical universe. That awe and amazement, I think, remains. We understand some parts of it, not others. I would very much like to solve the problem that I called Galileo's challenge. How, and Descartes' challenge, how are these miracles possible? We haven't the slightest idea. We can understand the mechanisms that enter into these actions, free, creative use of language. Haven't the slightest idea how it's exercised. Actually, that's true of voluntary motion generally. The leading scientists who study the neuroscience of voluntary motion, I don't mean complicated things like speaking, but simple things like, say, raising your finger and trying to decide what goes on when you decide to raise your fingers. They have no idea. What they say, the two leading scientists, actually former colleagues of mine at MIT when I was at MIT, Emilio, Bizzi, Robert Ajemian, they wrote a state-of-the-art paper not long ago in which they put it, as they say, rather fancifully. We can understand, we're coming to understand the puppet and the strings, but we have nothing to say about the puppeteer. And it's a very mysterious fact, because even for the most simple actions like this, why not? There's experimental evidence showing that the decision to raise your finger is made about half a second before you become conscious of deciding it. So the decision is made pre-consciously in ways which you have no understanding of it. At a much richer level, it becomes the question of how you and I are doing what we're doing right now. How can we constantly be engaging in this process of creating new structures, new thoughts, maybe new in the history of the language. Others understand them instantly and can somehow penetrate to our minds, even though they have no access to our minds. just through the use of a few symbols. All of that is highly mysterious. I know I'm never going to solve it. In fact, humans may never solve it, maybe beyond human capacity, but it would be an amazing discovery.